Welcome everybody. This is the press conference about the launch of the COP27 Climate Agreement on Food and Farming. This is a new proposal that can be signed by countries and others who want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the food system, so in agriculture and food consumption. So first I'll try to explain why we need such a climate agreement, and then what it means exactly, what kind of commitments are in it, and how and when and who can sign it. And there are remaining questions for you. So first I tell about my background. My name is Jeroom Remmers from the True Animal Protein Prize Coalition. This is founded 3 years ago, and I have a background. I worked at a government level, NGO level, and green companies, and I founded a new organization with a lot of organizations you can see right there. And we thought it's also time for a new climate agreement on food and farming. Last year, during the last COP, we sent an open letter to 50 presidents asking them to start carbon pricing of food, also to reduce climate impact of food systems. So why we need a new climate agreement on food and farming? So the global greenhouse gas emissions are nearly 60 gigaton, and greenhouse gases from food systems are 1/3 of all these emissions, and this is growing. So we need a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions from food systems at least by 30% by 2030. And this can reduce 6 gigaton greenhouse gas emissions, and this can help to reduce climate temperatures with 0.2 degrees Celsius. And of course, we need such decreases in our greenhouse gas emissions, also from the food system. The goal is, as I said, to reduce emissions 30% by 2030 compared to 2020 levels. And there are a lot of additional benefits because if we reduce greenhouse gas emissions from the food system, it also helps to reverse biodiversity loss and deforestation. It also will help the goals of the methane pledge signed last year by over 100 countries. And of course also the net zero goals for 2050. It will also empower a lot of similar initiatives like the Breakthrough Agenda for Climate Smart Agriculture, the FAST Dialogue, the FAST Initiative that will be launched also this year. So here you can see why this is important. Meat consumption in the world is increasing fast. Countries like China, but also Brazil, are eating more and more meat comparable to levels of Europe and America. And if this continues, we will have a problem. So now we can face it and try to reduce it. However, the meat demand in the world is predicted to grow fast. Here you can see it on the slides, especially for chicken meat, it will double the demand for it. And this is not in line with the Paris Climate Agreement, of course. Here you can see that in 2014, greenhouse gas emissions from meat and dairy were linked to 14% of all global greenhouse gas emissions. But if business as usual continues and the demand for meat and dairy is growing like it is predicted, then in 2050 up to 81% of all global greenhouse gas emissions are from meat and dairy alone. So this is, and this means that we never reach the climate goals. And unfortunately, a lot of countries are neglecting this fact. but we offer them an opportunity to do something about it. Here you can see that, as you may know, meat and cheese, especially beef, has a very high climate impact compared to other kinds of food products. And on the right side you see the country list of highest meat consuming countries, with USA on number 1, but also Argentina and Australia as big meat eaters. The EU Court of Auditors published a report last year about food and climate, and they showed this graph that EU diets, the climate, the carbon footprint is 80% from meat and dairy alone. So if the EU is going to do something about climate change and food systems, this is what they should target and reduce meat consumption. Of course, they also have to do things in the field of agriculture, but food consumption is very important too. There was a new study published also last year from the Illinois University in America, where there were made new calculations about the contribution of agriculture and food on global greenhouse gas emissions. And last year, meat, dairy and eggs caused 20% of all global greenhouse gas emissions. And this is equal to all greenhouse gas emissions from the States, United States of America, and Russia combined. So it's a lot, and no countries have real targets on it. So this is sad, but it's also an opportunity, because if countries would target it, there are huge opportunities, because it's easy to have nice meals and food without eating meat or eating less meat as we are used to, mostly in rich countries. So there were made some calculations about the options we have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by changing diets, and this can be a 3 to 6 gigaton CO2 reduction per year for different kind of their diets. So if you go vegan totally in the world, then of course this would be the biggest change, but also being a flexitarian and eating less meat, or stick to the Eat Lancet planetary health diet will really help a lot. And this can help reduce the emission gap we have to align with the Paris Climate Agreement. A lot of scientists made a proposal how to deal with this problem, and they proposed an optimal tax of meat, and this was calculated based on different environmental impacts like greenhouse gas emissions, but also nitrogen and other emissions. But if a CO2 tax would be applied on meat products in high income countries, for beef it would be over $5 per kilogram, and for pork 62 US dollar cents or euro cents. And for chicken it will be similar. And maybe you think this is not very popular for politicians to do, but we launched a survey nearly 2 years ago. And we did it in France, the Netherlands and Germany, and it showed that 70% of consumers support an intelligent meat tax, a higher fat rate on meat, while at the same time reducing fat rates on healthy products like vegetables and fruits. So there's a real opportunity for politicians to make such tax shifts and help consumers to eat less meat and dairy. So now we are talking about the climate agreement on food and farming and the commitments needed under it. So signatories can choose 3 options: to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions from agriculture, to reduce food-related greenhouse gas emissions, so the per capita greenhouse gas emissions on average, or do both. So they can choose. But they also have to commit to at least 2 climate policies who are food related and 2 climate policies who are farm or agriculture related. So they have to prove that they really do something about it and not just sign and then do nothing. Of course, we also ask them to update their commitments every year on the website. And of course, this has to be translated into the national NDCs. So we also ask them to participate in annual virtual meetings and invite other countries and states to sign the climate agreement too. And mainstreaming this kind of actions also in other sectoral policies and into international organizations. So what are the options that countries and also regions can sign to? From the list of options for agriculture climate policies, they can choose one of those, the following commitments. So it could be giving financial incentives like subsidies to farmers to reduce emissions. It could also be financial subsidies to farmers to reduce livestock numbers. This is done in the Netherlands now and in Belgium. But they could also reduce methane emissions from farms and import products which have a negative impact on deforestation. Three other options are applying the polluter pays principle on greenhouse gas emissions at farm level. This is now being studied by the EU Commission to include livestock in the emission trading scheme to reduce climate emissions. And other options are reducing agricultural subsidies with a negative impact on greenhouse gas emissions and encouraging investments in low carbon and climate resilient farming. So on the field of food policies, this could be apply a national per capita reduction goal for animal-based food consumption like meat and dairy, and start education campaigns, of course, about this topic. It could also be reducing taxes on healthy food products with a low carbon footprint like vegetables and fruits and plant-based meat and dairy. It could be public procurement measures to increase low carbon diets, legislation or restrictions on marketing and junk pricing to stop selling meat at very low prices. And of course it can be a tax on high carbon footprint food products like meat or dairy, and using those tax revenues to pay farmers to reduce emissions. So the last three options are pricing policies for supermarkets to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and prevent food waste from meat and dairy, and increase the uptake of vegetable proteins in mixed meat products. This is applied already in supermarkets in Europe to have plant-based meat mixed into products like hamburgers, but not much people know it, but it's an option. So who can sign this pledge? It can be signed by countries, but also by provinces and regions with over 10 million inhabitants. It can also be signed by food companies and retail and supermarket companies if they also want to make a statement and reduce their food-related greenhouse gas emissions by 30%. So we have analyzed policies for 9 countries and the EU Commission about their policies, and we found that they all comply with those climate agreement on food and farming commitments. So we hope that they will sign in the next weeks or months or maybe year, because they need time to make a decision. So maybe the EU Commission is going to sign. They are now looking into it, and we hope other countries are looking into it right now too. Okay, so the signing process will be that it's now today it's the launch. So from now on, countries and others can sign. And we hope that by the end of the year, 30 countries have signed, and maybe next year, during the next climate conference, 90 or maybe more. Signing is also open for endorsements, for supporting endorsements by other actors like civil society, other companies, financial institutes, local governments, and UN organizations. So you can do so by going to the website climateagreementfoodfarming.org, and there you can see how you can sign or support. It's just some forms you can fill in. Here you can see it, and we also made this option for countries to sign by taking this photo. Signing can be done during this climate conference, but it can also be done online. And we have another side event next Friday at 3 o'clock. Where this topic is also discussed. So this is what I have to tell about the climate agreement. So I have a question also to you. Maybe is there somebody in the room from a country who's here? Maybe not? No? Then I give the floor to questions from you. There's the microphone. I see there's one question over there.
Yeah, thank you for your talk. So, as I know, you're from the Netherlands, and it's a country that's very firmly in the grip of a strong animal agriculture industry. I wanted to know I wanted to ask if you could maybe describe the steps that the government is taking at the moment, because they're quite revolutionary. So reducing animal numbers used in animal industry. And maybe also, could you describe the situation right now, so the consequences of this very large destructive industry, and also if it's a viable options for other countries with a lot of animal production.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your question. Yes, I'm from the Netherlands, and right now there's a big political debate about reducing the numbers of livestock in the Netherlands with more or less 30%, so this is huge. And they have 25 billion euros for it to pay farmers to stop farming. Of course, this created a lot of protest in the farmer community, and now they're discussing how to do it, and they start with voluntary measures, so they pay farmers to stop. But if it will show in the next few years that it's not enough, then farmers can be forced to stop. Of course, then they will have paid, they get paid too, to compensate for the losses, and they can start a new job. And this policy is government policy now. Yes, we are happy about it because it will reduce both nitrogen emissions, which are causing a lot of nature and biodiversity problems, because our forest and nature is now declining because we have too much nitrogen from farms, and it's also polluting our waters, and it creates a lot of health problems. Millions of Dutch people have problems with their lungs because of this nitrogen particulate matter problems. So we need to do something about it, and in the same time our government also decided to reduce meat and dairy consumption. So they have a goal for 2030 to have a reduction of more or less 18% of meat and dairy consumption, while increasing the share of plant-based proteins. So I think our government is doing good steps and can be an example for other countries with high intensive farming communities. There's another question. Yeah. Oh, I think the microphone is not working. So we get a new microphone, so just wait a few minutes. But I have to tell there are more countries who do similar things like the Netherlands. So I know that Denmark, for instance, is also trying to have a CO2 tax for all industries, including agriculture. So this proposal will be made next year. So, and Germany is also discussing a tax on meat and dairy. So there are more countries doing the right things.
Thank you for the presentation. So you've told us that the way to mitigate the emissions is through taxing the industry, taxing the meat itself. And this is dedicated to the developed countries. What about the developing countries that are on the poor side? How can they reduce their consumption of meat and dairy and other stuff?
Yes, thanks for this question. So a tax on meat or dairy is only for the high-income countries relevant, but also for countries with a very high meat consumption level. And this is also China, and this is also Brazil, this is also Argentina. But we propose to give the revenue of this meat tax back to consumers, because if in the same time the prices for healthy food like vegetables and fruits is reduced, then this is more cheap. So people can buy more healthy and food with low climate impact. And countries can also subsidize poor people, lowest income groups with subsidies of food vouchers to buy more healthy and sustainable food. This can be done also in low-income countries, that there are no taxes, but subsidies for people to buy the food which is not contributing a lot to the climate problems. And we also think that stimulating organic farming could be an option to reduce emissions from livestock. That's better than intensive ways of farming. There's another question.
Thank you. I'm Manny Walker-Lee from the Malta Business Weekly. I didn't hear you mention the word agroecology. Maybe I missed that. Does your group support agroecology? And how will you link up with the UN Decade on Family Farming and with the Commission for World Food Security? Sorry, committee.
Yes, thank you. So the question is about agroecological farming and family farming, right? So yes, we do support agroecological farming. It's mentioned as one of the options to support farmers to make the shift to this kind of farming. But organic farming could be an option, but there are different options to reduce greenhouse gas emissions at farm systems. And yes, family farming is of course preferred. We hope that farming will be done at family farm level and not in big industries. I hope it's clear. Is there maybe another question? If not, yes, there's one more.
So in the beginning, I saw that the organizations you're working with, they contain like animal welfare organizations, vegan companies, but also companies producing animal products. How did you manage to have them work together, and is that something that, in your opinion, needs to happen on a broader basis?
Yes, I think it would be very good to form coalitions of different interest groups, like farmers, but also environmental groups, animal welfare groups, health groups, but also food companies like Beyond Meat or Corn or caterers or whatever. So we have combined all those groups and they are aligned with a mission to have a lower price for healthy and sustainable food products, but a true price for products like meat and dairy, including external environmental costs and CO2 emissions. So yes, thank you. I think we have to finalize this meeting, so thank you very much for being here and listening, and great to have you here. Thank you.